We are Karakia and welcome everybody.
Oki mai au ki te tāhu o te rangi. Tirohia mai rā ia papa tuanuku e takoto nei, e whare ki hea nei. Kia hohau mai te rangi, kia hohau mai ki te whenua. A te rei te mihi kia tātou e aku nei rangatira. Tēnā koutou hoki mai, tēnā koutou hoki mai rā, a tēnā koutou whakatau mai rā. Ka huri mai au kaimuri rā, koutou rā, me he me he e rangatira u mai kai roto i tēnei o ngā wahanga. Ka tika kia tū, kia hoki rai a kui i a koro. Tōrere tēnei au e mihi rā ki o koutou, me ki rā ngā whanaunga. E u nei ke rui ngā tūranga e wātiana mā tētahi aha ko kōwai, kia u mai kia noho kai hakarongo ki rungu ki tēnei o ngā kaunihira e haere ana. Ka tahi ka mihi ki o koutou me ki rā ngā mate ngā taumahatanga. E tikana ke mihi ki a rātou kua mene atu ki te pō, o te tāu, o te marama, o te wiki o enei rangi tonu. E nahi pēnei i au ngā kōnia, tai nei ki tērā o ngā matinga, kia tūkuna atu, kia poroporaki, kia maringi hinga roi matu no rātou kua mene atu ki te pō. Tō reira koutou rā ngā mate hoki atu, haere atu rā. Nā ko tāku tēnei ki mihi kia tātou katoa, tēnā koutou e pūhia nei te hau, ua hea nei te ua e whitia nei te rau. Kei runga i te kaupapa e haere nei, me ki rā tētahi o ngā kai kaunihira, tā tēnā o ngā whai tuatanga e wahanga nei ke runga ki tēnei te mata o Māori, tēnei te mihi atu. Nō reira kāre tōro o tāku nei tū, kia timata hia, kia marino ai ki tēnei he manaakitanga ke runga ki tēnei hui o tātou. Me he mea mohi o tērā i koutou pātata mai rā ki runga ki tēnā o ngā karaki o te atua, me pēnei ai tātou, me ngoi tātou. E tō mātou matu i te rangi kia tapu tōi. Kia tai mai tō rangatiratanga kia mea tia tāu e pai ai ki runga ki te whenua kia rite anō ki tō te rangi. O mai kia mātou ai o nei he tarongo mātou mō tēnei rā. Rua mātou harame mātou hoki e muru nei te hunga e harana kia mātou. O hoki mātou e kawaia ke whakawaia, whakaorangi a mātou i te kino. No hoki te rangatiratanga, te kaha me te karoria. Ake. Āmine, ka huri ki tēnā o ngā reo kia mohi o mai rā me ki rā e tahi o tātou, ka rea hipatu ki tēnā reo rangatira, hoi anō tēnei karakia. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Tēnei te mihi kia tātou, tēnā koe chia.
Kia ora, Perry, that was really excellent. I would just like to welcome all of our staff that are here today and our guests, including Api. Just walked in. Do you want to join us at the table? Are you happy?
Oh, no, I'm good where I
am. There are no apologies, I don't think. That's correct. Yeah. So notices.
Sorry, yes, we have got. Oh no, Mike's here. Sorry.
Mike, yeah.
Apology for early departure, 11:45, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Neil. We'll register that.
Two notices, Mr. Chairman. First and foremost, I'd just like a note for the record. I'm here as a tangata whenua rep, and I do not have a vote at this table. The second one is in regards to I will have to leave at roughly about 2:15, somewhere around there. Thank you very much.
Kia ora, Mike.
Same notice, Rick, that I'm here on behalf of tangata whenua from Wairo to Whanganuirotu, and I do also not have a vote. Thank you.
Kia ora, Michelle. We will register that in our minutes. Thank you. I have a notice. Well, I want to bring item 15 forward because Neil has requested that because it's it's close to his heart. So that we'll make that the first decision item 15. Okay. Are there any conflict of interests? There are none. Confirmation of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes. We have the special extraordinary meeting and we have the Regional Council meeting. We'll do the Regional Council one first. Are there any additions or items in that Regional Council meeting? That's of the 28th of October? If not, do I have a mover? Thank you, Jerry. Seconded, Craig. All those in favour of receiving those minutes?
Aye.
Aye. They are received. We then have the minutes from the extraordinary meeting, Regional Council, on the 18th of November. Are there any changes in those minutes?
Just one from me, Mr. Chairman. I don't think the position of tangata whenua was fairly captured within these minutes. I think tangata whenua's position was in support of the three recommendations that were on the table. Tangata whenua were at no stage in favour of going straight to a poll or into any sort of consultation with the wider community. Our question for that day was in regards to the councillors and the councillors' position, not for the community's position.
Yeah, I did note that too, Mike. What part of those specifically is that in those minutes?
I think it's not so much what part of it, but I think it doesn't quite capture the position of tangata whenua overall, that actual tenure, what's said in here.
Chair, given the short passage of time from that meeting till today's meeting, can I suggest that we review the minutes and take on board that feedback and represent them for adoption at the next council meeting?
Yep, I can do that.
I would support that, Chair.
The reason I raise is there's been a number of publications that basically says that the council is supporting Māori's view, tangata whenua's view. That certainly was not the case. The outcome was not that.
And we'll have an opportunity to talk about that at the report for the Māori Committee, Mike.
Could I just ask for help? I just think Chief Executive's suggestion is correct. We want to get this right. So could the Mike liaise with Leanne and the Chief Executive to make sure that the tender of that is right? When Mike is comfortable with that, bring the minutes back to the council for consideration later.
Yeah, Mr Chair, also I tautoko what Mike is saying, have that noted, thank you.
Okay, I think we'll do that, James. So we won't move the minutes right now. We'll make sure that they are correct to everybody who was in the room. Okay, so we'll move to the next item, which is acknowledgement of Liz. Is Liz here with us?
She is
She
here
is.
with us.
Where is she?
Just behind
Oh,
you.
there she is. Are you going to come up, Liz?
Oh, very good. It's not a red one, so you're safe. Good humour, Liz.
So, Liz, I have the pleasure of acknowledging your huge contribution to the council over the years. And I just want to reflect back, there were three of us here, and actually you were probably around when Neil was here prior, so he's definitely our kaumātua in this respect because he's been here forever. But, and I might let Neil have a few words because of that, he's been here the longest, but I just want to reflect that when I arrived, you were the Chief Executive standing. And we didn't always agree on everything, but I must say, I thought you were a really good Chief Executive. I thought you did a really good job, and you had a difficult bunch of blokes to deal with. There was and a very contentious issue, and I felt that you dealt with it really well. And you had a very divided council. And so you were really thrown in the deep end after that election, and I really appreciated that you took a balanced view, and as I say, we didn't always agree, and I think you chastised me once because I might have had a go at somebody. I haven't forgotten that. But you have served this council really well over the years, and you are going to be really sorely missed because the institutional knowledge which you carry with you, you just can't get. So I just want to thank you very much for your service to the council, and not only the council, but your service to the community. You have really done its best job that it actually could be done. So thank you very much. Neil, you...
Look, Liz, I can remember you prior to becoming the first woman chief executive of the organisation, and recognised you as an outstanding servant of the council, outstanding knowledge and understanding of the business of council, and very, very capable of doing that job. And I can recall the discussions when it came to your appointment to that chief executive role. It may have been a poison chalice in a number of respects, but I can recall that conversation. There was a great deal of confidence about your role going into that, a very difficult time for this in the history of this council. I just found that you fulfilled that role superbly, and I just want to acknowledge that outstanding piece of leadership, a quiet, outstanding piece of public service, and I congratulate you on that and acknowledge your contribution to our community.
Thank you.
And Will, you would like to... a few words?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Look, I've only been here a year as a councillor, but had a working relationship with Liz for a lot longer than that, particularly when she did step into the role of CEO. I was the Hawke's Bay Fed Farmers President, and obviously through Plan Change 6, there's been a lot of dialogue backwards and forwards, and I'd just like to say thanks to Liz. Her door was always open. She was always willing to listen to farmer concerns, and always went away trying to find solutions. And so it's been a great working relationship back then, and as it has been in the last year as a councillor. So yeah, thank you very much, Liz.
Thanks, Will. Rick, you can have the final council
Liz,
word.
you leave a couple of very important legacy issues here. One of them is, which I think people really appreciate or recognise, is that you led from the inside this council's position on developing the Regional Planning Committee. You were the key contact point and the intellectual grunt behind that, and made it happen. It was revolutionary in its day, and still is in many ways revolutionary. We haven't seen how it's going to go, so you leave a remarkable legacy. And I also want to acknowledge the point that Rex made. There was a few disagreements when I first turned up at the council. I misbehaved on occasions, as only I can. But even though I was misbehaving badly, I thought for good reasons, you kept your sense of humour. I admire you for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick. Anyway, Charles, sorry.
Yeah, ngā me kia koe, Liz. Yeah, I just want to, well, looking back over the years, I was here as a member of the Māori committee here, and at that time you gave a lot of good presentation to our people. So, and then I was lucky enough to come back with Ngāti Pāhua negotiations, and we worked with you again on quite a few issues, which had a happy ending. And of course, now that we're back here as a councillor, yeah, and you're still doing the top work that you started years ago. So I wish you well, and when you head off to your next, and hope it's predator free and COVID free.
Thank you.
Councillor.
So, particularly James.
Oh, Mike.
Oh, Mike, would you like to say something too?
Thank you, Liz. Look, I just want to echo the words of Charles for all the work that you've given, especially alongside the Māori Standing Committee, for over many, many years alongside Viv, the work that you both did in helping shape that committee, dealing with the many challenges that came from that table, and seeing the development, up to recent times anyway, in trying to develop the partnership with regards to council and tangata whenua. I certainly like to recognise you for your part in that. I certainly take on the board the words of the mayor, our chairman and our deputy chair in regards to behaviour. I think James is feeling that's a bit of deja vu taking place, because he seems to no doubt having the same issues for those particular gentlemen.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike, for that.
But in saying that, on behalf of tangata whenua, we wish you well in your endeavours ahead, whatever that may be, and especially with your time with your whānau. I know how precious that is to you, and especially with your I think mokopuna, now that they're coming through. And like we all do, as when we become grandparents, we like to put our attention and correct our failures with our children. Kia ora tātou.
Thank you, Mike. So we'll end up, Martin as well?
Just very briefly, Liz, I had the great pleasure of working with you from a position of being without the organisation, outside the organisation myself, and I totally tautoko everything that's been said. What I would like to share is my description of you as a person to work with, and the words I have that have come to mind are unflappable, endearingly human, wise, insightful, sage, not only a steady hand at the tiller, but a safe anchorage in stormy seas. So I'll leave you with that.
Sure.
Yeah, you mostly didn't think I would say anything, but one of the reasons that I'm possibly sitting around this table is because of your doing as well. Remember 2012-13, when we were extremely dry and we had a real fight on with primary industry and Hawke Regional Council, and you came in between and opened up the policy book and said, well, we actually have got a solution here for you, and hence we have got the Twyford Cooperative Company Limited, where we can augment and add value to and benefit the Raupari stream, and that actually has been a model for the whole tank process as well, part of it anyway. So we really thank you for that. You know, you were sort of straight down to earth, as Martin said. You know, you're human about it. You weren't actually compliance about it, and that really helped us along. And we felt that all of a sudden we actually had a council that we could deal with humanely, rather than having to just deal with compliance and trying to force our way through a legal perspective. And I really also enjoyed through that learning and getting to know you. Other times I met you was mainly on concerts, you know, around the place. And I really enjoyed you being just yourself there. You had no aura about you just because of who you were, the position, but you were just real, Liz, and we really enjoyed it. And hopefully in time to come, I'll meet you still many times at those concerts to come. Thank you.
Only one?
Oh, kia ora, Liz. We first met when I was up here talking about the Ngā Hapu o Tūtai Kuriawa management plan, and I think possibly yourself and James were in reverse positions. Yep. But, you know, this isn't the end of the journey, because I'm sure we'll see you around the council in some shape or form. But when I reflect on you, you're a straight shooter. You don't muck around, so you must be a great mother to your children and a grandmother to your mokopuna. So, you know, good luck with your new journey, but this is not the end. Kia ora.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you, Liz. I'll reiterate everything my colleagues have said, but particularly the times I sat with you on the awful plane ride down to Wellington every Monday or Tuesday for many years, and we ended up sitting together, and we'd quickly transverse what might be going on in the larger context, but actually we spent most of the time talking about your family. And but that just said it all to me. Actually a very competent person with the various roles you've had and some of the challenges that you've faced and come through with flying colours, but that to me is very important, that there's a real person, Hawke's Bay person doing her best with great ambition. So all the best for what you're doing next, wherever it may be, and as someone said, a COVID-free zone and etc., but also perhaps a councillor-free zone as well.
Rick and Rex free zone.
Where's that?
James.
Thank you, Chair. Look, I just want to put on the record the extent to which Liz's contribution to this institution over the last 22 years has been incredibly formative to the DNA of this organisation. And one of the things that Liz delivered at the earlier part of her tenure is the Regional Resource Management Plan, our current RRMP, which in its day was the first, second generation RRMP in the country. It was state of the art, and that plan guides all of our consenting compliance work that we presently do, as well as a considerable amount of our non-regulatory work as well. So in that early stage of Liz's time at council, she laid the blueprint for an awful lot of what we have subsequently done and are now building on further as an organisation. But then going into the group manager external relations role has been instrumental, as has been noted in the partnerships with Tangata Whenua that we've built through our Māori committee and more latterly the regional planning committee. And so I think the foundations on which Liz's contribution has been built, it just continues today. All of the issues we're currently confronted are building on that work. So that contribution has been enormous. But look, the contribution is not only in a functional sense to the DNA of the organisation, it's been very much to the heart of the organisation as well. Liz is an extremely well-liked leader within the organisation because of her humanity, her compassion and her caring for her colleagues. She's incredibly supportive and jolly good fun to work with. So that's the part that we're going to particularly miss. Chair.
James?
Thank
The floor
you.
is yours.
Thank
The floor
you.
is yours.
As indeed I will miss exactly those parts of the organisation as well. I was sitting having afternoon tea with a couple of my workmates and we were just bantering just the other day and one of them just stopped in his tracks and said, "You're really going to miss this." And I said, "I am." You know, so that whole camaraderie. But look, thank you all very much for all your kind words. It's very humbling. It has been 22, nearly 23 years. So I've been through, 8 local body elections and 6 chair, and lots of councillors, and only one of them's come back. Yeah.
It's hard to get rid of them, really.
Can't get rid of them.
And it's been an absolute privilege, and I think, for me, part of the key to me for my enjoyment is I've actually had a variety of roles while I've been here and had the opportunity to have a variety of roles, largely based around my resource management background, but certainly from policy to external relations to CE to regulation. So just being able to almost have a career refresh every few years without having to leave the organisation. But actually, leaving now I am, and I am going to be, doing some work for myself. I hope to have some more time to myself as well, and to be able to, enjoy with my children and grandchildren, go to some concerts when they're back on, Sheriff. I have got tickets for the Wiggle, so next March, if that's tempting. But I will, always hold. I think the work that's done by this organisation is absolutely fantastic. It will always be, and it will continue to grow in importance. And so I wish you all well. Thank you very much.
Well done. Well done, Liz.
All the best.
Stay here for the next item.
If I was you, I would. Okay, thank you. So the next item is item 5, follow-up items to the previous council meeting.
Chair, we'll just take any questions
There's
on
just
those.
the 2. Any questions on those?
I have a question, the Chair. With the overflow at Central Hawke's Bay, how long was that? I'm thinking that was it raw discharge or was it treated wastewater that went into the tuki-tuki?
Look, I couldn't answer that specifically. I know generically there remains an issue in Central Hawke's Bay, as in most councils, of inflows and infiltration of stormwater into the wastewater network, and their settling ponds have limited capacity, and in a very heavy rainfall event they do spill, which will be effectively raw sewage into the Tuki River. I don't know whether anybody, no, we haven't got anyone from compliance here, so I can't tell you specifically how long it was for, but in general terms that is what happens with their wastewater network.
Any other questions? Do we have a mover to receive and note report? Henny White and Rick. You wish to speak, Henny White? No. Rick? No. All those in favour?
Right.
Right. So, thank you. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. So minor items not on the agenda. Do we have any? I don't think we did. Okay. we-
I was Mr. Chair, rangatira of our waterways.
Okay.
That's mine.
Well, I'll go there.
Thank you, Michelle. Right, then we will move straight to item 15, which is the Napier City Burial Relief Response, which is a late item. Oh, significant activities, I forgot. I ticked it. So we have to, hang on, we have to go back. Number 6, significant activities.
So Chair, look, again, we'll take this as read and happy to take any questions. Can I just, before we do so, apologise for the fact that some of the text within the report has not been updated from last month. And so if councillors do recognise some of the text, I apologise for that. We've had a particular hump in the last week or so in relation to both the finalisation of budgeting for the long-term plan, the quarterly performance reporting for the Corporate and Strategic Committee meeting next week, and the preparation of this report, all falling on the same group of managers. And I think the area I noticed the most replication from last month was in the asset management, and I just acknowledge that team, during the time this report was being prepared, were all hands to the pump, literally, in relation to the Napier City flooding event. So that's possibly a bit of context why some of the text is not as updated as it could be.
Great.
Yeah, point 13, to the CEO, it's around biosecurity. It reads around the failure of the possum monitoring. It said 15 of the 17 properties have been resolved. What's actually been resolved? What was the core issue that got fixed?
I don't know whether...
Chair, through you, the issue was that they had failed their RCT, their monitoring threshold, so we've gone back in and improved possum control work on the properties, and 2 properties we're still continuing to work on to get the properties required to get RCC rates.
Did we do an intervention or something? Or get more traps or something?
We've worked directly with landowners, either supporting them in their own initiatives or supporting them contracted on farm.
And so typically the process is that if the landowner is willing and able to either undertake the work themselves or commission a contractor to do so, then the intervention has been an appropriate one in response to the failed monitoring test. But if the landowner is unwilling to do that, then we will, and we have the power to, put a contractor in and to invoice the landowner for those services. That is typically not required because we find that landowners are cooperative. The monitoring program is indeed there to provide early warning as to whether possum numbers are starting to climb up from the work that should be undertaken by landowners around ongoing suppression.
So the short version then, there's cooperation's been found with those 15 and it's working. No one needs to wag a big stick, they're just getting on with the job.
Correct, and the other 2, I imagine, are just continuing discussions about precisely who and how.
Thanks.
Yep.
Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2 requests for information when it can be supplied to us in 1 question. Point 28, the Whakaaki Catchment Pilot Project, case studies investigating costs of implementing farm plans, water reforms and ETS obligations. I'd be very interested in seeing the outputs in terms of opportunities to boost profitability, etc. If we could have that maybe to the EICC or whatever, when they become, that's most interesting, and I'd be very keen to see that information. Similarly, for item 45, draft conditions on the tidal gates consent, stormwater discharge consents. This is obviously a really important issue for Ahuriri, so is it possible that the councillors could see those draft consent conditions? Is that appropriate? Is that something that you could have a think about? I'd be interested to know what they say.
So in relation to the first request, we'll take that as an action and bring it back to the EICC. I don't know whether, Malcolm, you want to make any comment in relation to seeing draft conditions?
They've been put out to the applicants. Basically, for a final vetting to see if they're going to work. That's sort of the status they're in. Once they come back, we'll basically see a point of issue.
Right.
So you can either give them as a draft or we can get the final document out.
I don't want to overreach here, but if this has all been done through non-notified delegations, and that, then maybe we don't have a role, but I'd be very interested to know what those conditions say.
So I would be comfortable with them being circulated for information. I think it wouldn't be appropriate for councillors to provide input into the draft conditions, I think, at this stage of the process.
It's just relevant to the initiative we've got going on with the City Council on the Ahuriri Regional Park.
Understood.
Then the final thing is, which is a question that could perhaps be answered now. We had item 66, 25 complete production land use consents, 150 pre-applications, letters sent, 22 new deadline. Criticism of this process was conveyed to CI staff in November. Now, what was that criticism? It seems that we've moved to quite considerable lengths to make this process workable. What was the criticism received? I'd just be interested in that.
So the relevant staff and I met last week, the week before, with a representative from the farming community down there with an extensive list of concerns about the mechanics of the land use consenting policy, particularly the guidance protocols and the issues that have been well canvassed with council around the overseer versions. And we're currently reviewing all of those concerns, including seeking legal advice on those, and we've undertaken to go back to those individuals, but also more broadly to the community with our views once we've considered those. Most of the issues raised were not new to council. They are ones that we have given considerable thought to. And I think as has been signalled to council over the last 18 months, there are a range of challenging issues with giving effect to Plan Change 6, given that we're blazing a new trail somewhat in terms of how you translate in-stream limits into land use controls through consenting mechanisms and all of the associated scientific uncertainties with overseer and the issues that we've got with the existing plan and the tables around the LUC allocations. So we're just working through all that, and we just want to make sure that by the time the deadline is struck, we're clear with landowners around what the expectations are for them, and we're clear on the legal position on all the detail of all of that. And we will come back to council with further advice if we think that there are changes to either the policy or our approach that are warranted.
Could you? I mean, it did concern me that after everything this council's done to walk towards that community with this process, there's still a degree of angst there. So that line of sight into that would be appreciated.
Sure. Any more questions? Mike and then Charlie.
47, Mr Chairman, Karamu Catchment. So it's just in regards to doing the characteristics of the Karamu Catchment, especially in regards to phosphorus at the source, how it's transported, historical versus current contributors. Is there anything that gives recognition to I think Kaitiaki tanga values of tangata whenua, and also the other one is in regards to as to the Māori monitoring of that work. Given that the Karamu is such an important waterway, we all know the issues around the weeds and how the particular hapu who associate to that waterway feel about that. So I think just we need to be showing how we're incorporating these things into that.
So this particular piece of work, this work does sit under the wider auspices of the tank plan change that does make provision for a number of those values have been identified, but also the ongoing kaitiaki role and the cultural health monitoring and mātauranga that needs to be brought to bear to the implementation of the plan, of which this is part. I'll throw to Ian whether he wants to make any further comment in relation to how this fits into that work program?
Yeah, so thank you, Chair. The issue is really understanding where, as you appreciate, phosphorus is a key contributor or
Excuse me, look, excuse me.
one of the key contaminants in the current.
Hold it in for a second. Look, we really welcome our guests in, but we do have a we need to keep a bit of a process
I'm
here.
just putting it there, Rex. These are our kaitiaki.
Yeah,
Are
I
you
know.
actually practicing it?
I know, yeah.
No.
Well,
I'm putting the kaitiaki here right now.
I know, but we need to have some order with our guests. Thank you very much. Ian, can you carry on?
So yeah, so understanding where that contaminant's coming from in the landscape helps us then figure out what the management interventions on the ground might be to deal with it at the source before it gets into the water body. So it fits within the overall schema of the tank plan change. It certainly fits with the kind of linking our non-regulatory and our catchment-based activities into practice change and change in land-based activities to avoid those contaminants getting into the water body. So it's part of I guess it's one part of a jigsaw that helps us understand what are all the levers that we need to pull to get the right outcomes in the water body.
I think the question, Ian, is with the kāmu being such an important thing, we know we're doing all those things with our farming community, but how are we working with tangata whenua in the process?
This project, like I say, it's one part of an overall program. So in isolation, this is kind of, if you like, it's an understanding of the chemistry and the catchment. We take that piece and then we'll feed it into a broader engagement around what are the plans, what are the initiatives, what are the actions we would need to do on catchment. But this in isolation, it has limited value, but the overall picture is probably the most significant part.
Okay, thank you. Charlie, you had a question?
I did have one more, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, Mike.
So just before I move to the other one, it's just, I think what I'm really asking for, so where's that consultation, where's that engagement with our tangata whenua? We can hear the passion.
Mm-hmm.
We can hear the passion and we can also hear the frustration. And I think that's what we're trying to address. The other one was in regards to 72, Tuki Carp. I know we say that we've caught them all.
Both of them.
Both of them. But you know, what monitoring, ongoing monitoring are we? Because we need to know that we actually have caught this. Because if it isn't, we're going to see what we currently see with some of the other introduced species that run away on us. Those environmental biosecurity issues that keep coming on top of us. Brazilian needleweed, Chilean needleweed, and stuff like that. So how do we know that there was only two and we got Mr. and Mrs. Carp?
So Chair, through you, that work hasn't concluded, so it's a really good question. So we're looking at a range of options right through to draining the dam to make sure physically everything's, the carp are removed. On its own, it represents a relatively good news story because this new eDNA technology has allowed us to detect early the presence of these carp. Otherwise, they're really, really difficult to find because they get in and disturb the bottom of water bodies and they make it quite turbid, so therefore hard to see. So the good news part of this is that we've got a tool now that we're finding helps us find these critters in these remote random places early before they're widespread and a problem and hard to manage. But this particular bit of work hasn't finished in terms of us being satisfied that they are all gone and there is no further risk.
Thank you. No, we'll have to hold. Is that relating to that supplemental? Can you be quick?
Yes. So thank you. You've got tools to find them, discover them. If in fact you find a whole lot there somehow, do you have tools and procedures to get rid of them?
Another good question. I mean, there's poisons you can use, but that has issues. You can use netting and trapping and physical removal, but again, there's risk that you miss the last individual. And you can obviously, the right water body, dewater it, but that has impacts as well. So there's no one solution, and of course,
The use of poisons in the environment is a challenging conversation as well. So there's a naturally occurring product called rotenone that would kill fish, but it would kill all fish. It's not necessarily desirable in every situation. So there's no silver bullet fix, but a range of tools that we would apply to them.
Thank you, and Charlie. And then just a quick one on the Mohawk plan changes. What number, Charlie? The Mohawk plan change on the northern catchment. Yep, Ngāti Pāwera actually glad to be leading that out, and we had a meeting last week with a couple of the other Māori organisations, and they had some good questions, but it was moving forward. And I note that the first one is meeting the Moiras tonight, so hopefully our workshop won't go too long. I can get up there. The second one is the Whakaki kōrero that you've got in there. I have been approached by a couple of PERS from Iwitia, in particular, a bit worried about the consultation process, so it's good to see you've got a lot of consultations put in there. And I would add that at the last meeting we discussed seconding the guy at one of the council members at the team Wairau to be the Māori Relationships Officer. I think he's already been having to get out there and earn his pay, and that was a pretty smart move. And I congratulate Pierre on putting him in his team and letting him get out there and do what he's supposed to do. So, and he'll be coming to Mohawk this weekend to talk about the Mohawk plan change as well. So, yep, thank you. Thank you, Charlie. Michelle?
Kia ora, Mr. Chair. 2 points, point 29 and 30. So just the Wairau Community Partnerships Groups and Matangido Trust Board also holding over the next few weeks with staff attending. Matangido Trust Board, as far as I'm aware now, their membership should have expired in January this year. And we've approached Tātou many times about going through a robust election process, and I understand that they're working through the attributes for trustees, etc. But in the engagement with Matangido Trust Board reserves, Matangido Reserves Trust Board, that needs to be held off until the elected members are in place from the Te Rohe o Te Wairau side of things. The other thing is, I just follow on from what Charlie's saying. You met with Tātou Te Wairau and provided information on groundwater and resource consents. You met with Mahi Māori Committee, Rongo Mai Wahine Iwi Trust, Ngāti Rākai Pāka, the Wairau District Council Māori Standing Committee. I don't remember you meeting with our Māori Committee. Matangido Trust Board and Ngāti Pāhuera through the Mohawk plan change. You've mentioned too kahui there of Wairau. I'm the chair of one of the kahui te hononga o ngā awa, who represents 5 marae on the awa. Huata over here is one of the trustees of Ngā Tukuri Mahine Manuhiri. Another kahui is Wairau Tapokoro Mai Tawhiti, another kahui is Wairau Tapokoro Whānui. So if you're going to engage with 2 kahui, you engage with the other 5. And so it's just a little bit insulting to see only some are engaged and some others aren't. So yeah, just need to get that tikanga right. Kia ora.
Thank you, Michelle. Are there any? Do you want to talk to that, Paddy?
No, I accept the comment. This is something that's actually in progress. This was a report at a time, but point taken.
Thank you. Are there any other issues, or can we get a mover to receive and note the activities? Thank you, Rick. Seconder, that's Craig. Rick, do you wish to speak? Craig, anyone else wish to speak? I do, just before we wind up. It's just a tremendous amount of work. We don't get everything right all the time, but it's a huge amount of work that our staff are engaged in. So all those in favour of receiving this? Aye. Aye. Against? It's carried. Thank you very much. Now,
I don't even vote, Mike, remember?
now,
Could have done.
now
You're not valid, remember, Mike?
15. We'll go to 15. We'll go to 15 now for you, Neil. So that's you have to go out of this and you go to your special paper. Late item.
So, Chair, relatively straightforward paper here, hopefully. Just acknowledge the enormous hardship being faced by over 100 families here in Napier as a result of the flood. There are a range of forms of support being provided to those families from central government as well as local government, and we've been working closely with the Napier City Council in the response, and then moving into the recovery phase. This paper does propose making a contribution to the already established Mayoral Relief Fund, which has been established with funding from central government. Central government have provided $100,000 to this fund, and what's proposed is that the Regional Council supplement that with a further $100,000 from the disaster damage reserve that Council holds. If Council is of a mind to make this contribution, there still will be sufficient in the disaster damage reserve for our purposes over our anticipated purposes over the coming period.
Thank you, James. Any questions on the paper? One, Martin?
Yeah, just one question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The allocation of funds is decided by the Mayor, deciding panel of the Mayor or her delegated person, a councillor and a community representative. Do we just, hand the money over, so to speak, and leave that decision making there, or are other contributors wanting to be on that decision making structure? What are the thoughts around that?
So that's a discussion we could take up with Napier City Council. In preparing this paper at some haste, we worked on the premise that there is an existing process in train, and to leave that process to oversee the disbursement. But look, if Council was of a mind that it wanted to see representation, then that's certainly something we could take to Napier City Council as a proposal.
Taking speakers, Chair.
Yeah, questions first, and then we'll move it. Leanne just made a comment that central government do ask for certain criteria, so they just don't hand it over.
Yeah, so the criteria that's set out in appendix to the paper, as we understand, has been informed by requirements from the Crown for where these funds would be focused. So it's not proposed that we negotiate criteria at all, that we simply piggyback on the existing criteria that's been established.
Are there any further questions on the paper, or because if we want to change it, we can move it as an amendment? Neil, do you wish to move this paper?
I'm happy to move the paper, Mr. Chair.
Second by Haniwai, moved by Neil. Do you wish to speak?
Yeah, I will speak, Mr. Chair, and firstly thank James for bringing the paper to us very rapidly. A good response, and I do want to say this: it is the Mayoral Fund, and I just want to put on the record that I believe the Mayor, Kirsten Wise, has responded very, very well in this circumstances, and has been out in the community acknowledging the issues and getting on and putting solutions in place. I also wanted to recognise and acknowledge the Regional Council staff in this. A number of them have worked extremely diligently from go to woe in responding to it in an emergency situation, and they need to be thanked for their role alongside Napier City staff. So I think the responses have been rapid and adequate for the chaos in which occurred in the community. But it can't be overemphasised that this was a very significant event, and a reality if when you put and plan to have housing in a depression at or below sea level. When you do that, you invite this situation. The situation can only get worse. I wonder whether, in fact, we ought to have a response back, James, from staff, a bit of a review from across the organisation, from our civil defence response. Every time an emergency of this nature comes on, there are lessons to be learned. And I think there were some in terms of our initial response, our monitoring of the event. We also need to make some significant inquiry about the adequacies of the infrastructure which we're a party to in Napier City. Clearly, we're needing to have a review of the adequacy of that. Are there solutions that we can bring forward which are affordable? But the reality is The people that have been affected in this situation have been usually lower socioeconomic. It's occurred in suburbs that have with limited resources. Those houses that were flooded, and I think there's something like 100 of them, or over 100 have been affected badly. And having driven through the event, trying to access vulnerable people, I can attest, having my vehicle come to a stop and having to be pushed out, that at the time it's a scary situation, and people were really affected. So our contribution of 100,000 will be well received, but we need to be mindful of what responses we need to put in place going forward to what will inevitably be a repeat and in the not too distant future. So happy to support this recommendation, Mr. Chair.
Anyway.
Yeah, I think it's quite simple that people in need, that we respond, and this is our way of doing that. Using the reserve fund and matching the government's 100,000 is absolutely a way we can do that, especially for all the families and communities living in Maraenui, Onekawa, Pirimai, Mārewa, those on Mataruaho on the Napier Hill. So if this is the small way that we can help, then I think we should.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Martin?
Yes, hi, I support my Ahuriri colleagues on this. We've taken in 3 refugees. We did on the night. They are whānau. They were renting a house. That house at the moment is currently leaking today because they're in a holding pattern with the insurance company who say don't move. And there is a bank that is gradually working its way into the back of their house and water flowing into it. So the question I have here is that this says money will not be given where there are other revenue streams available to support, but I do ask that perhaps the allocators of the fund consider the timing, because there will be families throughout Ahuriri who may ultimately get some redress, but in the meantime are stuck in a holding pattern, while what we saw in Christchurch is a whole bunch of bureaucracy to get through before that relief ultimately comes. So interim relief where there is long-term relief should not be ruled out. Thank you.
Mike?
Alex, I'm also in support of the contribution of 100,000, Mr. Chairman. I take on board in regards to the various suburbs that were affected. Many of them have a large proportion of Māori. I also like to recognise the efforts of the Tai Whenua Whanganui Rotu. I recognise the CEO, Tony Eden, and of course the Chairman, George Whangareti. The way they stood the Tai Whenua up extremely fast out there supporting their community. I think it's a demonstration of when partnerships work well and there's respect amongst those partnerships, you can achieve great things and have far better outcomes. Kia ora tātou.
Any other speakers? I'd just like to make a brief comment. I strongly support a contribution to the Hawke's Bay Regional Council of this $100,000 to the people of Napier. This was a very significant event. Official data is 250 mils, but there were lots of people who measured 280 mils on their own, and so it was really difficult to gauge. I think it's been highlighted, it's really serious when we have a housing crisis and we have another 100 people that can't go back to their homes. So this is a serious disaster for the people of Napier and a serious disaster for all of us, because we just don't want any more homeless people, and especially people, insurance, some have insurance, some don't have, and it was, I think we were given the figure, it was quite a large number of people didn't have insurance, not covered. So anything we can do, I think we should do, and this 100,000 is definitely a first step. Neil, do you just to wind us up?
No, just to acknowledge the contributions and that early response, I think, is, as Councillor Williams has pointed out, is an important response to make. Get in early, act early.
All those in favour of the resolution?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Is carried. Thank you very much.
Just before, can I just make one comment?
Yeah, sure.
Just before we move on, Chair, if I could just pick up on the suggestion from Councillor Curtin. We have agreed with Napier City Council and the Hawke's Bay Civil Defence and Emergency Group to employ an independent expert advisor immediately to commence work on a review of this event. And that will be looking at all of the actions leading up to, during and flowing on from this event. That report will be commissioned by the Regional Council, and we're aiming to have that completed by 30 June next year, which will inform future planning around a similar event either here or across the region. And we will bring that report to Council so that all of the learnings from this will be taken on board.
Thank you, James. So we'll move to item 8. Are you going to excuse yourself now? Thanks, Neil, for your contribution today. It's been good. Item 8 is proxy for the HBRIC annual general meeting, which is same day as the port one, which worries me a bit. But any questions to the paper? Do we have a mover of the paper? It's proposing that the chair of the Regional Council is the proxy. Are we in agreement to that? Will you move?
Craig moved.
Yeah. Craig moved.
Yes.
Second, Rick.
I thought best not, because my signature's on best way.
Second, Sheriff. Yeah, we'll keep you out. Just close your eyes. Craig, do you wish to speak?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sheriff? All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much. Fixing the common seal. See you there. You're on, Rick.
I'm happy to move that.
I'll second it. Yeah.
Second, Martin will second it. We won't ask for speakers. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Right, information performance report from the Environment and Integrated Catchment Committee. Henny, why do you, as the chair, do you...
I'll just accept the notes on there, and if there are any questions that anyone had.
Questions for Henny White or staff? Craig?
Question for Jess, really, regarding the Tutera Regional Park, the changes there and around forest harvesting list. I wasn't able to raise the point at that committee, but I just asked if you can inform us of the implications of that. There was a lot in that paper about decisions being made by Chris's, Mr. Dolly's area, I think, making decisions about not harvesting, etc., based on their areas of expertise, which is fine. But of course, that has long-term financial implications for the council. So I didn't see those numbers, and also has an impact on our carbon footprint. So I just wondered if you'd done any further work there, or could you inform us further? I'm not arguing with the point. I'm just trying to enrich the decision.
So I have asked Ben Douglas to work with Rhonda on just pulling something together in terms of the financials. So we'll bring that back to you next opportunity.
That would be good, thanks. And if we could, in future, if things like that come up, I presume they come through the financial team or something, so we can have that commentary. Thanks.
Any other questions? Anyone, do you want to move your paper?
Yep.
Thank you. Seconder, Rick?
Seconded.
You wish to speak anyway? Rick? Anyone else wish to speak on the paper? Therefore, we will move the recommendations as, it's quite a few of them, 1 to 10. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Against? It's carried. Thank you. Report, item 11, report from the Māori committee. Mike, as one of the co-chairs, I'd like both co-chairs can, so you can first start, and then Michelle, you can, our two co-chairs.
I suppose for me, Mr. Item, I think it's number 2. Just in regards to the importance of the takiwa thing reports. This is the only opportunity of where actually tangata whenua get to put their views onto the table. Other than that, we're receiving information from Regional Council, from Council, where we're asked to comment on Council's business. So this part of our meeting is absolutely important. That's where the engagement actually takes place at this table for our standing committee. It's about us being able to bring our issues directly to this table and put it on the table. And hence the reason why the breadth of some of the stuff that hits this table in that space. I think the other part for me that kind of stands out in that particular space is we're wanting to develop what we're seeing here, the reports from the various committees, So being able to bring a Māori perspective of our various subcommittees back to the Māori Standing Committee. The points that have actual relevance, or that they feel have relevance to tangata whenua, hapu, iwi, in that general area. I just wanted to bring to the attention of councillors 2.5, the recognition of a nomination for, I think Kataraina, I think Kawana. So she's one of our stalwarts in Wairoa. She really involves herself 24/7 in the environmental aspects that take place within the Wairoa district. She's one of those many unsung heroes that we all have in our communities who are just battlers for our community. So I just wanted to bring that to the council's attention, that recognition is going out there. So we're very supportive of that. I suppose the only other point I really wanted to highlight was number 11, Māori representation on Hawke's Bay Regional Council. Just to say, look, a bit like the minutes, I feel that this doesn't accurately record the depth of that conversation that took place at that particular meeting. More importantly, the unanimous position of the Māori Standing Committee in regards to the support of the 3 recommendations that were put to us as part of that report. We understood all of the ramifications that sat outside of that. Stuff around polls, the stuff that could happen in regards to the process. Really what we were asking of that day, of you, the councillors, is where were you? Were you beside us? Do you value us? That was the question we were asking back of you on that day. That's why it was so important that we heard from you that yes, we support the establishment of Māori wards. We understood all the ramifications that would have fallen out if that was the case. We were happy to take that battle. We battled for 180 years. Nothing changes for us in that space. So it really wasn't about the feelings of the community. I understand from your position, you may have a slightly different view on that, but on that day, that's what was being asked of you. And so the real question is now is, how do we go forward? How do I feel I can give advice? How do I feel as though I can serve this council, the councillors, when I feel as though I've been devalued? The mana of tangata whenua has been devalued. That's the real question. That's not what's captured here. And as you see, we understand the deepness of the feeling. Other than Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to add too much more to this report. I'll leave that for my co-chair.
Michelle?
I'll go back to 11 also, but we bring these take forward from our areas due to deep concern about our tile. And like I make a request, cultural impact assessment, because I'm seeing stuff on the banks and the health of the awa. And how does that impact on our mahinga kai practices for our tangata whenua? Again, with the 1080 drop of the possum control, this implicates food poverty for my people. Especially where I'm from, Ruataniwha Whakapau, Te Whenua. For centuries, my people have practiced mahinga kai, and they do today. It is one of their main sources of food, whether it's from the awa, it's from the moana, it's from the ngāhere. It fed me as a child, and it feeds my people still to today, because there's a lot of poverty. But when I was a child, we were never poor because we always had that kai. I never thought of myself as poor. Money wasn't it. It's all there in the resources, but our resources are slowly dying. And so You know, up comes this Te Mano Te Wai, and so I asked that question in line with objectives 1, 2 and 3 of Te Mano Te Wai. How does it relate to all these things we're bringing across? We're coming forward with all these mamai, and I just feel like we're just devalued and ignored. One of our representatives, my good friend Katarina, she's one of 4 tangata whenua representatives on that forum. It's a national forum to look at the long whaneo. That's how deep we are into it. You know, so again, why are we even doing these reports? We don't have a say. Nobody cares what we think. And then we go down to the to number 11. What Mike is talking about, that's just a summary, a safe summary, like it was a safe vote the other day. We just got totally ignored. I put my mama on the table, I tangi. That meant nothing. That meant nothing. And now I'm angry. I'm angry. My people are angry. And you can hear it. That's just a taste of it. That's just a taste of it. We never ceded our right to rangatiratanga of our waterways. But I see no partnership, no action towards that. I saw cowards. I saw cowards. I saw racists. And doesn't matter what my people said from all over Kahungunu. Doesn't matter what we said, even the RPC, who have legislative right. They said the same thing, we all said the same thing, and we were ignored. That's what needs to be put in here. In your other minutes, your extraordinary minutes, we were ignored. We were devalued. We were treated like we were nothing in our own land. Kia ora.
I just want to make a statement too. I was at the meeting. Anyway, I was there as well as another councillor. Item 11, it's been kind to say it's revisionist. It doesn't say anything that happened at that meeting. No. It doesn't say anything. And, you know, I can't accept this paper, so I'll be voting against receiving it, because item 11 says we gave the opportunity for tangata whenua to provide. It doesn't say what they said. It needs to say what they said. Otherwise, why did we do the meeting? So I won't say any more than that, but it doesn't say it.
Chair, could I be helpful? Could I suggest the paper go through the same process as what was suggested for the minutes of the special meeting, be referred back to be rewritten and come back to a subsequent meeting of council? Accurately reflect what was said.
Chair, look in response, we can certainly update the paper. I think one of the things that we've just got to work through here is that typically we record the discussion and the views raised on items in the minutes of the meeting, and what hasn't been yet prepared and signed off are the minutes of the Māori Committee. That will go to the next Māori Committee meeting for sign off, and that is usually the record of what has been discussed. These reports typically are a summary of the items that were on the agenda, and so that's how we've found ourselves in this situation. It was not in any way to diminish or to not fairly represent the discussion. That was just to be picked up in the minutes. But I appreciate the fact that, given the significance of this issue, more elaboration within this of the nature of what was proposed in the paper could have been added in, and so very happy to take it offline, strengthen it up, and bring it to the next meeting of council.
Mr. Chair, can I also add that one of the reasons why it needs to be recorded properly is that our children, our mokopuna, will read this in the future and go, "What did my nan say? She said nothing." They just went with it, and
Okay.
that's what it's about. It's about being tika and pono.
I agree with that.
It'll be recorded in the minutes, Chair.
Can I just add, I note the only recommendation is to receive the report. Clearly there was a recommendation for councillors to the council about their ideas for the Māori representation. So I think we need to have recommendations like the other committees.
That's what this was, a test operation.
Settle down. I'm in Rick's camp. Who else is in that camp to take this away and so that...
I don't know, I think you just need to make a decision here and chair and just say this is what's going to happen.
Yep, okay, I'm going to. Thanks for that encouragement. I want this report to go back and I want it to reflect the meeting accurately.
Chair, so just for clarity, so our minutes record the events of a meeting. Would you like us to review the practice of that across committees to ensure that the reports that come are a composite of the minutes and discussions as well as the papers and the agenda items for council?
Well, James, essentially this is a report from the Māori Committee making recommendations to us that we receive. That's essentially what it is, and it doesn't reflect that.
I think, if I might be helpful here, Chair, I don't think we need a narrative of what people said.
No.
But there was a clear conclusion from the meeting as articulated by Mike, which is a statement of fact, that there was support for the recommendations 1, 2 and 3. If it was that clear, so this is what was recommended, that would be really helpful. It's a statement of fact, it's not a narrative around it, just that would be, I think, would make it clear what's missing in the report without getting into the politics of it.
Okay, we're taking it away and we're going to redo this and represent it. I want to move to item 5. Oh, we haven't got any councillor reports from outside meetings, so we got nothing for item 5. Discussions, settle down please, councillor.
I'm helping you out here.
You're chit-chatting. 6, a discussion, one item's not on the agenda. Michelle, we only have one and it's you.
Rangatira of our waterways. I recall kōrero in the extraordinary meeting where you, Martin, quoted that you're uri of one of the signatories of the Treaty of Waitangi and that you wanted to honour that. One of those things that you're supposed to honour is rangatira of our waterways. And we're still waiting for that. We're not partners, we're not treated as partners. And you were voting in the same direction as the rest against Māori seats. So I just can't accept a lot of the speeches that were given. So we're in a position where we don't have any rights. Doesn't matter how many legislations we got, how many settlements we got, Kazi. It means nothing. Just like Toro said it's a couple of years ago. So that's not been honoured, the treaty's not been honoured. So I called upon, and the New Zealand Māori Council made the call to our nation to call for rangatiratanga of our waterways, to follow our whanaunga Ngaitahu and go all the way. And that's what we need to do. That's what we need to do, whānau. Because we're just ignored here, we're devalued. And we'll just keep on fighting the fight because that's all we can do. I can't wait till there's peace, rangi Māori. I can't wait till I can just sit here and discuss everything, bring our things to the table and their value. But at the moment, it's not. Doesn't matter how much legislation we got, how many times you let us sit at the table, we still have no real say. We still have no real say. That RPC are all PSGEs that have agreements with the Crown, that they will honour these things. And what happens? They still can only make recommendations to the council and they make the decision. And Michelle, it doesn't help when our own selling out. Yeah.
Michelle,
and yeah, on top of that. Yeah, no, so that's what rangatiratanga of our waterways is, and that's what I call my people to go for.
Thank you, Michelle.
Kia ora.
Good on, Michelle. Okay, that is actually the end of our public meeting. Thank you very much, everybody. We have, we're going to have to move into public exclusion. Will you help us with that, Penny? No.
E maringi tōni tia e ngā roimata kai runga ki tērā o ngā wiki, te take e tutukihia. He tū tēnei ki te mihi ki o koutou e tai Māori mai e mau pupuri hea i tēnei te tūturutanga o ngā whakaaro o rātau mā e kawe nei o koutou. Nō reira, koutou rā e noho muri mai. Tēnei te mihi kia o koutou e kawe a tai tinana mai. E nā ngā whakaaro o rātau mā kawe tonu kai roto ki tēnei o ngā huhuinga. Tēnei te mihi kia o koutou rā. Me ki rā i mua rā e te aukatitanga o tēnei o ngā hui. Kia noho tahi mai rā me ki rā ngā kai kaunihira. Ko tā koe mihi kia kōrua nei. Te timatatanga o tēnei hui. Nau nei e tonoa mai te komiti nei. Ka noho tangata whenua au me āku nei whakaaro. Kia tai te wā, kia whāriki hea, kai runga ta haireretanga o tēnei o ngā kōrero e pāna ki ngā kaupapa katoa o tēnei huhuinga. Nō reira, tēnei te mihi kia kōruara. Ngā tiamana o tēnei te komiti Māori, engari ko tākua nō nei e mihi rā kia koutou e noho e muri nei. Kai runga i o koutou poko hiwi ka tai nei rātau e tai wairua mai. Nō reira, tēnei te mihi, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, huri no tēnā tātou. Ka timata hea kai runga tarangi Māori ka tuku tēnei whakamoemiti kai runga. E tikana ke o tipai ke whakakapi ai tēnei wahanga hui e hoki anō ki aia. Ka urata rā ki tōna kōmata, ka parita tai ki tōna pūkenga. Ko te puawai, ka puawaitia, he kākara tai āwhio ko haina ki te ao. Ko tā koe mihi rā ki a koe rā e te atua nau nei te katoa o ene o ngā taonga e kōrohia i au. Ana e noa mātou e tūho mai ki a koe mo tēnā ngā nau nei e kōhā mai rā i ēnā mā tātou te tangata. Kia mana kihia, kia arahihia, mō wai, mō rātou te uri e whai nei a tātou. Nō reira tēnei te mihi atu, kei ringo te ingoa o tāu nei tama i hukaraiti tō tātou nei kai whakaora. Āmene, kia ora tātai.
Thank you very much to our guests. Thank you.